The air inside the grand hallway of the Whitmore estate was still, almost reverent, as if the walls themselves held their breath. The golden-framed portraits of generations past watched silently, their painted eyes glimmering in the soft glow of the lamps. But one painting, a large, recently added portrait of a young girl, commanded attention. Her blue eyes seemed almost alive, her faint smile serene yet haunting. And when the janitor, Thomas, stopped his mop and looked up at that face, his hands began to tremble. His heart raced as memories he thought were long buried came crashing back with unbearable force. His lips quivered, and in a shaky whisper he said, "Ma'am, the girl in that painting, she lived with me in the orphanage. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more true, emotional stories to light." Thomas had been working at the Whitmore estate for only a few months. To everyone else, he was just the janitor, quiet, polite, invisible. But today, as he stood in front of that portrait, his silence broke. Mrs. Evelyn Whitmore, the elegant owner of the mansion, turned from her conversation with the curator and stared at him in surprise. "What did you say?" she asked softly. Her voice, though calm, carried a weight of disbelief. Thomas swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving the portrait. "That girl," he said again, his voice cracking, "I know her. She used to live at St. Helena's orphanage. Her name was Lily." He remembered the winters at St. Helena's, the freezing mornings when the children lined up for breakfast, their breath visible in the cold air. Thomas had been the janitor there too, a quiet guardian who swept hallways, fixed broken toys, and gave out warm cocoa when the kitchen staff wasn't looking. Lily had been one of the smallest children, about 7, with a kindness that seemed to light up even the darkest corners of the orphanage. She had a habit of drawing pictures of a big house with gold frames, saying one day she'd live there and invite everyone from the orphanage to visit. But one day, Lily was gone. Adopted, they said. A wealthy family had taken her in. Thomas had been happy for her, even though her sudden departure left a strange ache in his heart. Years passed, and Thomas left St. Helena's after it shut down due to funding cuts. He drifted through jobs, maintenance work, security, cleaning, never finding another place that felt like home. When he got hired at the Whitmore estate, he had no idea that fate was quietly setting the stage for something extraordinary. As he stood trembling before the portrait, Mrs. Whitmore's expression softened. "That's impossible," she said gently. "This is my daughter, Emily. She passed away 6 years ago." The words hit Thomas like a storm. He looked closer at the painting, his vision blurring. The golden curls, the blue eyes, the same shy smile. It was Lily. Every detail matched, down to the tiny birthmark near her neck. He took a step back, fighting tears. "Ma'am," he whispered, "I'm not mistaken. I helped her learn to tie her shoes. I fixed her drawing pencils when they broke. I remember that face like it was yesterday." Evelyn looked at him, a mix of disbelief and confusion crossing her face. "Emily was never adopted," she said slowly. "She was my biological daughter." The room fell into silence. The curator excused himself quietly, sensing something deeply personal unfolding. Thomas lowered his gaze, unsure what to say. He didn't want to offend her, yet something inside him urged him not to let it go. There was more to this story, something hidden beneath the surface. That night, long after everyone had gone, Thomas stayed behind to polish the floors. He couldn't stop thinking about the portrait. Every time he glanced at it, it felt like the little girl's eyes were following him, silently begging him to remember. He decided to dig into the past, not out of curiosity, but because his heart wouldn't let him rest. He found an old newspaper article about a car accident from 12 years ago involving the Whitmores. It mentioned that their infant daughter had been presumed dead after the crash, though no body was recovered. The same year, St. Helena's records listed a new child, Lily, found abandoned near a roadside, with no birth certificate or trace of family. The pieces fit together like a tragic puzzle. Lily was Emily Whitmore. Somehow, the child had survived the accident, lost her identity, and ended up in the orphanage, only to be rediscovered, years later, through a painting that bore her face. Thomas's chest tightened as he realized the truth. The girl he had once tucked in during stormy nights had belonged to this very house all along. He decided to tell Evelyn everything. The next morning, he knocked on her study door, nervous but determined. He brought with him a faded crayon drawing Lily had given him long ago, a picture of a big house with golden frames, and beneath it a smiling little girl holding hands with a tall man in blue overalls. "That's you," Lily had told him once, grinning. "You're part of my happy home." When Evelyn saw the drawing, her hands began to shake. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Thomas told her everything, about St. Helena's, about Lily's dreams, about how she vanished after being adopted. Tears streamed down Evelyn's cheeks as the truth unfolded before her. "She used to draw this house," Thomas said quietly. "She said one day she'd live here." Evelyn fell silent, her mind racing through years of pain, love, and unanswered questions. Could it be true? Could her lost daughter have lived as an orphan all that time? They contacted a private investigator who confirmed the heartbreaking truth through old hospital and orphanage records. Emily Whitmore had survived the crash. A passerby had taken her to a rural shelter miles away, where she was renamed Lily. She had grown up not knowing her real family, and when she passed away years later from a rare illness, her identity was never traced back. The Whitmores, believing she was gone forever, had commissioned the portrait based on her childhood photos, never knowing she'd lived, loved, and left behind people who remembered her. As Evelyn listened, her grief mixed with an unexpected peace. She invited Thomas to sit beside her in the grand hall. Together, they stared at the portrait. "She remembered this place," Evelyn whispered, touching the golden frame. "Even when she didn't know who she was, she remembered home." Thomas nodded, tears glistening in his tired eyes. "She never forgot kindness, ma'am," he said softly. "That's who she was." The days that followed were filled with quiet reflection. Evelyn arranged for a memorial service at the estate, not just for Emily, but for Lily, the girl who had lived two lives unknowingly connected by love and fate. She invited the few remaining orphans who had known Lily, and Thomas stood among them, proud and broken all at once. When the ceremony ended, Evelyn approached him. "You were her family too," she said. "She drew this house because you gave her a home when she had none." That night, the portrait seemed to glow warmer in the lamplight, as if the girl in the painting was finally at peace. Thomas, standing in the silent hallway, felt something lift from his heart. Years of loneliness replaced by the bittersweet comfort of knowing that love, even when lost, always finds its way home. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, and help us spread stories that remind the world that kindness and compassion never go unnoticed. Before you go, tell us in the comments, would you have followed the same instincts as Thomas if you recognized someone from your past in such a mysterious way? Because sometimes a whisper from the past isn't just memory. It's destiny reminding us that every act of kindness can change a life forever.